Paolo Banchero has 34 points in his return, but the Milwaukee Bucks spoil it as they pull out the win. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, the Thunder bounce back from their loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Kings and the Pacers both are on pretty good win streaks. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On NBA Game Night, where it's every game, every night. I'm Haize, host of Locked On Bulls. I'm joined by Swipa, host of Locked On Nuggets. Hey, it's a good night of basketball tonight. How have you felt overall about the week of basketball before we get into these games, Swipa?
I mean, I feel like it's been good. You know, I feel like the headline of the week was obviously the OKC Cleveland game that honestly was the game of the year. And we got a chance to see true basketball and seeing Isaiah Hartenstein and Jared Allen, I think, being the matchup of the game. The NBA is in a great place. I love the content that is being made. I think that basketball is the best place it's ever been. I love watching. There's a young team in OKC that's dominating. You got some teams that are trying to figure it out along the way. Cleveland's out of nowhere. Boston is trying to figure some stuff out, but they're in a rough fight right now over the last month. I mean, the NBA has so much talent, and I'm really curious to see over the next month, 2 months, who's going to be able to pull away from everybody else in their respective conferences.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about a few of those teams on today's episode as the Pacers and the Kings are trying to scrap their way back up in their respective conferences. But we're going to start off this one with the Orlando Magic versus the Milwaukee Bucks. This was Paolo Banchero's return. The Bucks went 19-14 over the time when Paolo was out. He comes back, scores 34 points in this game. Overall, let me ask you this. I know that they lost this game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and we're going to talk about the Bucks side of it. But how do you feel that the Orlando Magic are going to be able to compete now that they do have Paolo back?
Yeah, and again, I want to say they didn't have Franz today. Obviously, Mo Wagner's out because of injury. Jalen Suggs was not available today, so they're missing key guys. Wendell Carter Jr., came off the bench and all that. And they have been dealing with injuries all year. They have had people coming in and out of their lineup. I think Jamal Mosley right behind Kenny Atkinson is probably my second for Coach of the Year this year. I think for him to be able to hold up his end of the bargain as a coach where despite the circumstances, he got them into the best possible position. Again, you're missing your best player for most of your season, and you're sitting tied at the 4th seed, really, or the 5th seed with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they deserve all the credit in the world, and I think this is what's going to make them better in the long run. Figuring out ways to win without your stars. I think your stars, too, one thing, Haize, when you don't get a chance to play, if you're doing things the right way when you're rehabbing, you get a chance to sit back and watch. Yeah. Watch your team play. Watch your team execute. Figure out how can you make the best of what you have in front of you when you do get back in a lineup, and how can you find ways to get everybody else involved in the game, knowing their tendencies and all those other things. So I think that the Orlando Magic, they're headed in the right direction, and I'm really, really happy to see what they've done so far this year.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. We do have the host of Locked On Magic on. We're going to go ahead and play this clip here. Then we're going to talk about the Bucks winning this game.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic here at the Kia Center as the Orlando Magic fall to the Milwaukee Bucks 109-106. And there'll be a lot to say about that game. We'll talk about that later on Locked On Magic, or if you tune into Locked On Magic. But the story of this game, Paolo Banchero is back, and back like he never left. 34 points for Paolo Banchero. He made 5 three-pointers, carried the team through the 4th quarter, made this a game, gave them a chance. Yes, he did miss one of a potential game-tying free throw, but to have this after 2 months off, 34 games, Banchero scored a point for every game that he missed. It was just an incredible effort, and he said it after the game that he still feels like he didn't have his legs under him, but once he kind of got that rhythm, once he kind of found that groove, he started to play more naturally, more like himself. It's going to take a little while for Paolo to truly get back to that all-star level, but if this is the baseline, if this is the place that we're starting at, Paolo is going to be more than fine for the Orlando Magic, and this Magic team will still remain competitive for home court advantage.
Good clip there. In this game, though, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 41 points in this one. Also 29 from Dame Lillard. How'd you feel about the game overall?
Yeah, I mean, Giannis is continuing to play at MVP level all over the course of the year. And I think one of the stories of the season, obviously, is just the fact that he's been able to hit the mid-range as well as he has. And it's really opened up his offense and opened up the offense for the Milwaukee Bucks over the course of this entire season. And I think there's a lot to be looking forward to with this team. I mean, Giannis this year, by the way, for everybody just so they understand like how good he's been, Giannis is shooting 71% in the restricted area, which on 387 field goal attempts is bonkers, like it's asinine. But then also from mid-range, he's 60 of 128 this year. He's shooting 46.9% from mid-range over the course of the season. And that obviously has opened up so much of his offense because he's not a jump shooter at all, still doesn't have a jump shot. But even today, he was able to make a floater over Bataze today. He was able to do some pull-up mid-range shots. That kind of stuff continues to open up our offense. And again, this game was not a game that was a blowout. This was a nip and tuck. You had Cole Anthony making some really important shots in this game. Paolo Banchero made an important three in this game. So you need separators when you're playing offense. And for Giannis to be able to do that. And Dame, you know, he played well. He was 9 of 21. I think Dame ended up with a pretty good stat line tonight. Both of them figuring things out together, I think it's going to continue to help this team get back where it belongs, which is near the top of the Eastern Conference, but then even getting like some contributions from Bobby Portis and such off the bench as well. So they have a lot. Like I think that the Bucks, they want to win a championship. There's a pathway for them to get to the NBA Finals, but it's obviously going to be back on the back of Giannis to be able to do that. But I do think them figuring out how they can continue to build around this core without Chris Middleton tonight and how to make sure that the role players are ready once time comes come the playoff. But tonight they played really well. And again, even if they were missing Chris Middleton, the other team missing some of their best players as well, it was a very hard fought game by both teams.
Absolutely. At the top of the Eastern Conference is going to get very, very competitive, I feel like, here over the second half of the season now as everybody's starting to get healthy. But let's go back out. Well, staying out east in a way, the Thunder, after their loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers in what many people are calling the game of the year, they turn around. They get a 25-point victory over the New York Knicks, winning 126-101. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 39 points in 29 minutes in this game. Brunson did have 27. Karl Anthony Towns had 23, but the Thunder still pull this one out. Swiper, how'd you feel about this game?
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder are a buzzsaw. I mean, it's just really that simple. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gives you 39 points in 29 minutes tonight. You know, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, just an unmakeably great score. You know, and then on top of that, you get 31 points from Isaiah Joe. Like, they just have guys. And what makes them so dangerous, again, it is their defense. Like, it's the fact that you got to deal with Shai as often as you do. And you got to deal with the shot making. You got to deal with the pull-ups. You got to deal with the change in pace and the change in direction. And then tonight, the Knicks had no answer for him whatsoever. And he was able to do whatever he wanted. But again, the important thing to note is the New York Knicks, y'all, are an incredible offensive team. Incredible. They had a 75 half-court rating offensively today. Because the issue is that when OKC gets you in the death chamber, and they start throwing waves of Lou Dort, SGA, Alex Caruso when he's there. When you have to deal with Cason Wallace, you got to deal with Wiggins, you got to deal with AJ Mitchell, everybody. And then on top of that, Isaiah Hartenstein is there. Look, I want to say OKC, I think they're 20-1 with Isaiah Hartenstein this year, Haize, which again, like, is ridiculous to think about. Like, if he had played more games this year, he would be in DPOY conversation. That's how impressive he's been this year. So think about it, Haize. Tonight, you get to funnel Jalen Brunson and all these other folks. You get to funnel them directly in to Isaiah Hartenstein and the rest of that vaunted defense for the OKC Thunder. And again, like, that's a really good team in New York. And they just quite simply didn't have enough defensively to be able to deal with them tonight. So just all around, great performance for the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, and then when you get 31 points off the bench from Isaiah Joe, like, that just shows the depth that this team has. Of course, you're not expecting Isaiah Joe to do that every single night or anything like that, but like, it's just they have so many weapons there with the OKC Thunder. And keep in mind, they still are going to be adding Chet at some point this season. That's just, like, you called him a buzzsaw at the beginning of this, and that's absolutely what they are, a buzzsaw. Let me ask you this real quick before we end this segment. Right now, if you had to put a prediction on the two teams in the finals, who's your pick?
Thunder Cavs. Yeah,
Okay.
no question. The Cavs aren't going to get the respect they deserve because they're the Cavs and because it's Donovan Mitchell. They don't have LeBron. The Cavs are 33-4. They're 33-4. And two of those losses are to, I believe, the Hawks. Yeah. So they're 33-4. They won 12 straight games. They just beat OKC. And they're going to have 4 All-Stars, I think, this year, I would argue. Yeah, I mean, the Cavs should be I would not be surprised if they should be title favorites for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, man. We'll keep talking about that as we go on, man. But next up, we're going to be talking about the Kings and the Celtics. They getting a win over the Celtics. But first, we got to get to a message from TurboTax. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless wanting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on reductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your tax their undivided attention. While you get real-time updates on their progress, so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you will get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for the stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. More Locked On Game Night coming up next. All right, let's get into this game, man. The Sacramento Kings win their 6th game in a row, 114-197 over the Boston Celtics. We do have the host of Locked On Celtics in to give us his thoughts on this game first.
Celtics fall apart in the fourth quarter. A couple of things. First, the first game back from the long road trip is always a problem, and it really bit the Celtics. And it's striking to me how this year's Celtics team is giving in to some of these traps that are, all along an NBA schedule. Something like this, playing down to the competition. Celtics didn't do that last year. They're doing it a little more this year. And they put themselves in a position to get torched in this fourth quarter. 3-point shooting. It was even coming into the fourth quarter, and the Celtics and the Kings were tied. And then all of a sudden, the fourth quarter, 8-1 from 3, Sacramento, and they ran away with this game by 17. And of course, Domantas Sabonis, who was rebounding and just dominating this game. Even though they didn't have De'Aaron Fox, I knew Sabonis being the hub of their offense was going to be a problem, and he absolutely was. Celtics, no energy, no defense. It was a real problem for them. Another loss at home. Concerning at this point, no, but still not great for the Celtics. So something they have to figure out as a team, as champions, how to play these games and be motivated to win at home against a team missing one of its star players.
All right, in that fourth quarter that he mentions, DeMar DeRozan has 12 points. Keegan Murray has 19 points. Malik Monk has 4 points. Those 3 players alone outscored the Boston Celtics in the fourth quarter of this game. When you look at this fourth quarter, did it come down to just the lack of execution by the Celtics, or do you think that the Kings more so took this one?
Yeah, there's this real narrative that I have really noticed about the Celtics this year that is very interesting to me, that every time they lose or every time something happens, it's because they let down. And what I'm saying is they, over the course of this year, have just simply not been one of the 2 best teams in the league, and they've been very inconsistent. And that matters, that the Celtics have shown they have a propensity to be able to not show up in moments like this. And the Kings, again, it's not that you're playing down the competition as of right now. The Kings just fired their coach. De'Aaron Fox has trade rumors abound. That they're at the bottom of the Western Conference, and they have a bunch of veterans on their roster. Hey, it's like They shouldn't be in the scenario. So they are now bouncing back with the requisite energy required. And they lost a lot of fourth quarter games this year. But again, you knew the tide was going to turn for the Kings at some point, and it has. And then they won 6 straight. So I think like there's just this thing that the Celtics, I think, are trying to come to terms with. They ran through the league last year. The Eastern Conference was very injured in the playoff. They ran through the playoffs. They then run through the Mavericks. And I think they almost expected like that could possibly happen again. And I'm just saying, I think the NBA is just in a different place. And the Kings are good. Like, hey, they're not like great. They're not a playoff team bona fide, but they're a good team. And they did a lot of things. They just took advantage of the fact that they were beating them in rotation. They were beating them to the rim. Malik Monk was beating them to the rim. And then they were leaving folks open. So, like, what do you want us to do? And then we've talked about this before, Haize. Like, it's not just that the three-point shot is going to vary, but they're so reliant on their three-point shot that they almost can't do other things sometimes. And that's the problem. You can shoot a lot of threes, but you better be able to get to something else. And so what happens if you aren't making your threes? Like, who's doing what? Who's showing up to do this? Like, there's a lot of things that go into basketball tonight. And Domantas Sabonis, I argued today, Haize, I made an argument he should be an all-star this year. 28 rebounds, dog. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, there's a level of physicality he brings. And I think that really messed with the Celtics today. So I think the Kings just earned a victory in Boston is what it sounds like.
And I agree with that. I agree with everything you said as far as like there's this narrative that when Boston loses, it's like, oh, well, they let it go. They let go of the reins. No, the Kings came in there and they executed and they played well as a team and they took that win, in my opinion. And I think that that's okay to say. Boston has to go through this because they did go through a very banged up Eastern Conference in the finals. I mean, in the playoffs last year. It's not going to be this easy this year. It just isn't, hopefully. And so the Celtics are going to have to figure out a way to win these close games if they want to be able to repeat as champions. Because I tell you what, right now, I don't know if I'd pick them over the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 7-game series.
And this is, I want to be clear, like they earned every bit of their title and they were just as dominant as they said on paper. But if the Eastern Conference is better now, then your level of play has to raise with it. And again, hey, it doesn't, how many games have the Cleveland Cavaliers won in a row? 12. You know what the Boston Celtics record is in the last 12 games? They're 6-6.
That's crazy.
So this is what I'm saying. Like they're 6.5 games behind the Cavs in the conference, and the Cavs look like juggernauts. So, and the Kings are also coming up. So again, the Celtics can win the title. They deserve to be called favorites, I would even say, Haize, because they are NBA champions. Tatum didn't look good today. They had their full starting 5 today, and they got worked when it mattered most in the fourth quarter. And so it's just, I just want to give the Kings a shout out. I think DeRozan played really well. Sabonis played really well. Malik Monk is a terror, how fast he is coming off the dribble. Keegan Murray had a nice game. His season's been up and down. Trey Lyles was good off the bench. They got a lot of guys. And so we'll see how the Kings continue to bounce the rest of the year.
Absolutely. Let's get into the next game. The Pacers, they win their 5th game in a row. The thing that's special about this is their second 5-game winning streak in just the last 30 days. They've actually only lost 3 games in the last 30 days. The Pacers, whose season started off really, really rough. Now, I know that they're facing off against the Warriors team. They won that 108-96. The Warriors have been going through their own problems so far. But, Swiper, the question that I want to have to you based off the Pacers here is that, are the Pacers back kind of where you thought they would be based off how their season ended last year, or do they still have a little ways to go before you believe in this turn that they've taken over the last month?
Well, I think the good news is the Pacers are 21-18. They're on a 5-game win streak, but they're the 6th seed. And this is about what we thought they would do. And also the story of this is Tyrese Halliburton has been a different player as of late. Tyrese had 25 points and 10 assists tonight with 3 steals. He was 8 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 7 of 7 from the free throw line. Now, context added, there was no Steph Curry tonight. So obviously that makes a big difference for the Golden State Warriors. But Hallie's development, Tyrese Halliburton's ability to come back, become the version of him that he was, that is the real story. And I love the fact that he's looking more confident. He looks more fluid. The injuries that seem to be kind of holding him back early in the season, they kind of dissipated. And look at this. Tyrese Halliburton, last 10 games, 19.5 points, 9.5 assists, a game, 48% from the field, 38% from three, and 88% from the free throw line. That's Tyrese Halliburton, like on really good efficiency, 63 true shooting. And again, he has 10 turnovers and he has 95 assists in the last 10 games. That's Tyrese Halliburton, Haize. So if Tyrese is playing that way, they're gonna be a tough out for everybody. And so you got a chance to see that tonight versus the Warriors as well.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the rest of the games and what segment I'm calling Swipa and Haize's teams won tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about those on the other side of this message from Rocket Money. Managing subscriptions can be a hassle. Did you know you might be paying for services you no longer use or even paying for some twice? That's where Rocket Money comes in, simplifying your finances and helping you stay in control. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that tracks and cancels unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and even negotiates to lower your bills. With everything in one place, you can finally get a clear picture of your finances and start reaching your goals. Over 5 million users have used Rocket Money and saved a combined $500 million, with some saving up to $740 a year using Rocket Money's premium features. One of the standout features is the subscription tracker. It identifies and cancels subscriptions you don't want anymore with just a few taps. Plus, their goals feature helps you set aside money for future spending, effortlessly taking the steps and stress out of budgeting. Take charge of your finances today with Rocket Money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and start saving. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Again, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. More game night coming up next. All right, Swipa, man. Let's get into these games, and we're going to start off with your Denver Nuggets. Our teams won tonight, so this is our time to actually talk about our teams. I don't think we've had a single episode since we started doing game night together where both our teams won on the same night. So how'd you feel about the Nuggets winning?
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Well, quickly, Russell Westbrook gets his 202nd career triple-double, which is obviously the most in NBA history. This is his third this season, Haize, and this is the second time this season where Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook in the game with triple-doubles. Russ with 25, 11, and 10 tonight in a triple-double. Nikola Jokic, first game back from being sick, missed 2 games on a back-to-back, 35 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists, and 4 steals tonight. And the Nuggets moved to 22-15 on the year. They are in a 4 seed. They are currently 1 loss behind the 3 seed, and they have the Dallas Mavericks coming up in a doubleheader, both in Dallas, and Luka and Kyrie may not be there, and they're currently both sitting at about 9.5 games back of first, I believe. So there's an opportunity for the Nuggets to get real separation from the Mavericks in the standing and almost kind of create a little bit of a buffer with the top 4 teams in the West and everybody else. But obviously, the Nuggets are going to have to go in and get that win. Jamal Murray actually went out with left knee soreness at the half, and so didn't come out in the second half. But overall, the Nuggets were at plus 33 tonight with Joker in the game. They were minus 14 without. Really struggled to create good looks and general offense with them. But look, the Nuggets are winning, bro, and it's going to be real interesting over the course of the year to kind of see how they continue to build momentum. But you had to beat this Nets team because they were decimated with injuries as well.
That's a fact. That's a fact. You mentioned how Russell Westbrook has the most triple doubles in history. Jokic right now is third. Let me ask you this. How long does it take for Jokic to pass up Russell Westbrook and take up that number 1 most triple doubles in NBA history?
That's interesting. Triple double leaders. I'm trying to remember because Jokic is sitting at 145. You said what?
He has 181, right? No. Oscar Robertson is second with 181. Yeah.
So Jokic is 145. Oscar is 181. Russ is 202. I would probably say at this rate, if Russ is probably gonna, if he stays in Denver for a year and a half, he's probably gonna get to about 210. I would say maybe 3 years, maybe.
Okay.
It'll probably take for him to break that record. But again, if Russ keeps playing with Denver, he's gonna keep getting triple double. So who knows?
Yeah, and Russ is fitting in really well over there. I'm glad that the Nuggets won this game, and the Nuggets are a team that I think that it's easy, like people kind of overlook. Not to say that they don't think that they can do anything, but I don't think that they're looked at as kind of having the same kind of power that they've had in the Western Conference before. But I tell you what, that Nuggets team is going to be difficult out, and especially with Jokic playing at the level that he's playing, like he's having one of the best statistical NBA seasons in the history of the league that people just aren't really talking about because the Denver Nuggets aren't winning at the rate that they expect. And I hope that I think that Jokic is going to remind people of that once the playoffs start.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Well, my Chicago Bulls got a win, 138-105 over the Washington Wizards. Zach LaVine with his 5th straight 30-point game. And not that any win over the Wizards is remarkable at all. Matt Moore, who I do Locked On NBA with, actually has this thing where 30-point games against the Wizards should not count the same as 30-point game against the other teams because they give them up so frequently. And I understand that, but the Bulls, for a team in the Bulls that have they lost against this Wizards team 2 weeks ago, right? And lost against a lot of teams that they shouldn't necessarily lose to. This was a feel-good win, but I tell you what, there's only so much of this that really matters if the Bulls are telling us that they are trying to win games. They keep saying they're not trying to tank. It's not just about development. They're trying to do everything it takes to win games because they want to get in the playoffs. You can't act like this is some huge win over the Washington Wizards, in my opinion. But on the outside looking out, how do you feel, Swiper?
I mean, 18-20.
Yeah.
They're 2 games fully into the play-in. They're 2.5 games out of 6. Yeah. I personally think they should, but I said this many times though. Like I think that the Bulls are stuck in the in-between place where they're not bad enough to really tank, and they're also too good to be bad as they need to be. And also they got some bad contracts on their roster. I think Zach LaVine's a very good player. But the NBA has determined, the league has determined he's injury prone and he's overpriced. And so therefore they might be stuck with Zach LaVine on the roster, and Zach LaVine's too good to suck with. And so now he's putting up really good performances versus these teams. And now it's like, okay, his trade value is going up seemingly because of his play, but the contract is still an issue. There's just a lot of moving parts with Chicago. They seem to be fighting 2 different timelines. I don't know if they actually figure that out this year or not, but they have a lot of talent for a team that is trying to tank. That's a veteran talent, but I don't know. I really, truly don't know. Like, I think Artur Connor is really trying to deplete this team of the assets they have, but there just aren't any takers around the league yet.
Yeah, we'll see where the direction of the Bulls is, man. One team also trying to pick their direction is the New Orleans Pelicans, man. They get a win today, 123-115. We do have the host, Jake, of Locked On Pelicans. We're going to go see how he feels about this game now.
Zion Williamson suspended. Herb Jones out indefinitely, and the Pelicans somehow get a 123-115 win over the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. CJ McCollum was awesome. 38 points, shot well from 3. The Pelicans shot overall well from 3, taking 40 attempts, making 18 of them, giving them a big advantage in that area. And look, it's definitely notable that this team goes out and beats not a bad team, not a good team either, in the Philadelphia 76ers, but gets a quality win, somewhat of a quality win, without Zion Williamson, suspended the first time they really kind of handled a disciplinary issue with him in that regard. Does that mean maybe the tables are turning with the way they view him as a franchise player? He was late to the team flight, held them up, suspended for this game, and they get a win. Jose Alvarado, big spark plug off the bench as well. Maybe it means something more going forward. Maybe CJ needs to be a top trade target. We're going to be covering it all over at the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
One of the questions that Jake asked there, I want to throw over to you on this one, Swiper, is that he asked that, is this a change in the way that the Pelicans view or they plan on handling Zion with the suspension? Do you think that that's the case, or is this just a situation where they just had to remind Zion he can't do whatever he wants to do?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a change per se. I just think it's ridiculous for Zion that you're already so far behind the 8 ball for me that, like, your injuries, your diet, you name it, and now you're being late to everything. This sounds like somebody who's made a lot of money, who's very young, who's gotten his way for a long time, and now the team is just like, okay, well, we're finally going to really truly hold you accountable. And they have tried for years. Now, here's the thing. I think Zion is more immaturity. I don't think he's a head case. I'm hoping he's not a head case. I'm hoping it's just that when you're young, Haize, and you got $40 million a year coming into your bank account, you can do almost anything that you want. And then on top of that, everyone wants to talk to you everywhere you go. Everybody wants a picture with you everywhere you go. you start to believe your own hype. And I think you showing up late to meetings and late to planes and late to travel to Philadelphia, yeah, and then on top of that, you ain't proven nothing yet. I just think he's read too many of his newspaper clippings, and I think he just needs an opportunity to kind of resettle with himself about who he is and what he actually wants out of his NBA career.
That's true words have not been spoken, because I agree. Like, Zion's going to have to do some real big soul searching and figure out what he wants to do, because his career is slipping away, and I don't even know if he realizes it or not. So hopefully he does, and he wakes up and gets this wake up call and starts writing that shit. Because when he's on the court, like we've seen, Zion is an extremely talented player, but in this league and in most sports league, talent can only really get you so far. You have to put in that work to refine that talent. You have to put in that work to take it to the next level. Raw talent got you in the NBA, but it won't keep you in the NBA, especially with all the stuff outside of basketball, outside of the basketball court that Zion has had going on in his career as well.
Yeah, and we saw he got berated on Twitter about some of his antics off the court. So let's try to stay out of that kind of trouble. You know, John Lewis said we need to get in good trouble. You know, that's good trouble for justice and righteousness. I want to get in good trouble. I don't want to get in bad trouble.
I feel that. Any last thoughts, Swiper, man, before we get out of here, brother?
Nah, great NBA game night. OKC's they're a murderer's row, and I'm very excited to see how they continue to play over the course of this season.
That's a fact. We want to remind you guys that Locked On NBA Game Night is live every night after the game, every night. Make sure you guys stay in tune. You also get Locked On NBA, which is your daily midday show going over all the happenings around the NBA. For Swiper, I'm Haize. This has been Locked On NBA Game Night, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.